Hey guys, welcome back to another 3D printing video, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Tronxy XY-2. So this is the older version, not the Pro. So we're going to unbox it, assemble it, and do some test prints. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so I bought this printer a while back and I just haven't had a chance to review it. It's probably been actually over a year since I bought it, so let's go ahead and open it. So here on the top we can see what we're greeted with. So it looks like we have a bed surface sticker. Looks like a quick instruction manual and the parts that are included. And there are only 4 steps to get this thing assembled. So alright, so everything is nicely in the foam. So let's go ahead and take off some of these pieces here. So first things first, let's pull this screen out. So the way Tronxy does it is they have all the brains and the screen together in this one block here, which is kind of unique because it kind of eliminates putting this kind of stuff underneath the printer. Let's go ahead and take this film off. And they do have a really nice touchscreen. And this is where the micro SD card goes, and this is how you connect to the computer. And all of our wires come out of it. All right, well, since I don't remember exactly where I bought this thing, looks like I got the European plug, but that's not a big deal because this is a very universal cord and I have plenty of these. I believe I got this printer directly from China. It's probably the reason why it came like that. So here it looks like we have a bunch of little extra parts and stuff, even screwdrivers and things like that. Our USB to micro SD adapter, and it does include an 8 gig micro SD card, a small amount of test filament that's in black PLA, and here's our power supply. And it's quite thin, and they do have this little box here, or protective cover, and it's metal also. XT60 connector as the output. Then our power cord will connect here, and it's fused that on and off switch. Now it's quite important that you check this first on your power supply. Here we have a selector from 110 to 220, and I need 110, and I can see under there, it's kind of hard to tell, but it is switched this way to 220. We want to go ahead and switch that over. So I'm just going to use this wrench that was provided. I'm going to go in there and try to switch it. And the reason you want to go ahead and do this is because when you start assembling, you might forget to do that. And then when you plug it in, it could mess up the printer, the electronics, or, you know, damage your power supply. And by the way, this is a 12 volt, 20 amp power supply. All right, so let's continue. So we have a spatula that's actually sharpened. We have a USB cable that connects from the printer to your computer. And here we have an all metal spool holder. It's quite thin and sleek and does the job. So let's go ahead and take off this layer of foam. And here we can see that we have the upper portion of the printer, and it's pre-built already, which is nice. So we don't have to do too much except for check everything. Should be good to go. And below that we have the base, which is mostly just a frame with the bed on it. And that's what that looks like. And this is a heated bed, but it is not insulated. It's just not a big deal since it's not very large, but it will take longer to warm up because it is a 12 volt system instead of a 24. All right, so now that we got everything out, what you normally want to do, and as you can see guys, there's not very many pieces, so this should not be very complicated. So normally what I like to start with is the base here, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that number one, it's square, so meaning like it's sitting straight, it's not bouncing around or it's warped. So if it is, you want to loosen these bolts and then get it level and then tighten them back up, and these on top also. So mine appears to be square, so I should be fine there. Now the other thing we need to do is we need to check our rollers, because a lot of times these rollers, they're adjusted at the factory, but they're not where they need to be. So, and this one is quite loose because you can see it kind of jumping around. So what we need to do is we need to loosen the eccentric nuts here. So essentially what's happening is these two are stationary and then these two are adjustables. And this is what this wrench is for. So maybe you guys can see that eccentric nut right there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn it just a little bit. So I turned it just a bit, and now our bed is not loose. So the trick here is to get the rollers just tight enough where they're barely pressed against the channel, but not too tight, because if they're going to be too tight, these rollers will get messed up and the channel will eat them up real quick. And the best way to check that is, once you think you got it quite close, hold the bed and then spin the roller like a little burnout in one spot, and you can see how much tension's on it. So these are good, but these are too tight. So what we're going to do is we're going to back off just a little bit. And so now they're all really good. And our bed should be nice and solid, but at the same time, very smooth traveling. So if you move the bed around and you feel a little bit of jumping or kind of grabbing, check your rollers again. And also check your belt, make sure it's running true on all the sprockets, because sometimes they're off also and could cause binding and whatnot else. All right, so let's go to our instructions. So step 1 here, we can see we got to put the top portion of the printer and connect it to the bottom portion. And it looks like we're going to be using 4 M525 bolts. So in our bag of stuff here, we have a little baggie with some hardware. And here we'll find 4 bolts that look like this, and they do have little lock washers with them. All right, so we're going to grab the upper portion and we're just going to set it over, kind of to line up with the holes. Now there's no best way to do this, but usually what I do is I usually just raise one side and then start it with my hand. That always works out pretty good. All right, so I started this side. Now I need to start the other side. So this side seems to be a little bit of a stretch. So I'm raising this up. That way I can spread the legs apart a little easier. All right, so I was able to start them. So now we're gonna grab the correct Allen wrench here and we're gonna tighten it up. Same thing for the other side. And now our printer is in one piece. So as you guys can see, it didn't take too long to put it together. Now, it looks like we do have some more adjusting to do here, or quite a bit of adjusting to do, because this whole thing's wobbling here. So it doesn't look like they pre-adjusted everything. So before we continue to installing the electronics, let's go ahead and adjust everything. Now, when I was putting this on, I also noticed that our coupler here is not even tight. And if you guys can see that, I can just raise it right off the motor. So what we need to do is we need to find the flat spot of the shaft of the motor, and we're going to put one of these set screws right in front of it so we can tighten it to the flat part of the motor. All right, so once you find your Allen wrench, line it up and then tighten it. And that should be good right there. So we're going to snug that up, and we're going to go ahead and do that on both ends. Okay, so the coupler is connected. So let's go ahead and go to these rollers here. So the rollers definitely could be a little finicky and tricky. Like this one's completely just rolling. So it's very loose. These actually are the opposite on this side. They're very tight. And then we still have rollers here we need to adjust, and this is too loose also. So we want to go up just a little bit. So we're going to tighten it up just a bit where the rollers are barely have friction. There we go, then that's perfect. So what you want is a really smooth travel without any wobble. So as loose as you can have it without it having a wobble is the perfect tension. Now some people like to tighten them a little bit tighter, but I found that the looser they are, as long as they're not wobbling, you're going to get the smoothest operation and plus a very high quality print. All right, so here we need to adjust them just a little bit. This one we need to tighten. So that feels pretty good, and these feel pretty good. Maybe you want it just a little bit tighter. All right, so now all of our rollers are nice and solid, and we can be assured that we have a really nicely adjusted track here. All right, so let's continue with the assembly of step 2, which is installing brains of the printer and also the monitor. So there are a bunch of wires, and the good part is they're all labeled, and it shouldn't be very difficult to connect them all, and we'll get to that in a second. Let's go ahead and install the screen. So it goes on the left side of the printer like that, and it does mount on these T-nuts. And the way T-nuts work, you loosen the bolt enough where the nut falls in the groove of the channel, and then when you tighten it, it moves. So it's a little bit hard to use if you've never used them. The way I've learned that it works is just unscrew it a lot and then start screwing the bolt back in, and then it'll turn. Usually works for me every time. So as you can see, the first one grabbed already. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that for the other one. Unscrew it, and there we go, it also grabbed. So now we can snug them up just a little bit. Doesn't have to be very tight. All right, so that was step 2. Step 3 is putting on the power supply. So the power supply goes on this side, and maybe you can see there's a hole here and the hole up here, small one there, and the one up here that's gonna mount it to the channel. And also we have a T-nut on the bottom of it that'll mount to the channel on the back. So it's gonna sit something like this. And there are these two long bolts, they're silver bolts, that'll mount to the supply through the channel. So before tightening these two little bolts, let's go ahead and do that T-nut first. Same way, we're just gonna unscrew it and screw it in. All right, so that grabbed, it's nice and solid. Now we can go ahead and tighten these bolts. All right, that's it. Our power supply is on. So that was step 3. Now there's step 4, which is the last step, I guess, not including connecting everything, and that is the spool holder. So we're gonna flip the printer around, and we're gonna go up here where the lead screw is. So on the spool holder, we can see there's T-nuts also. And the way it's gonna go is gonna go like this, right there, with the spool coming out towards you, towards the back. All right, that's how it goes. So you guys can see a little better. We're gonna turn it here. So kind of like that. All right, so that was our last step. And then the rest here, we can see, kind of shows us to connect all the wiring. And here has a little diagram of, you know, where everything goes. This is actually not hard at all. All we're doing is we're just matching the wires to where they go. Pack of wires here, or just looks like one plug. This plug is gonna connect everything that's on the x-axis here. So that comes out right there, simple enough. Now these longer wires that are colored, these are motor wires. So we have an E here, so E stands for extruder. So that'll go right here. This is the part that extrudes the filament. So let's plug that in. So here we have a wire, it says Z. The Z motor is right here. That's the one that turns the lead screw and it goes up and down. So that is Z. So here we have an X. X is the motor that runs the hot end back and forth. That is right here underneath. And then we have our last one, which is the Y, and the Y axis is way back here in the very back, and the plug is actually underneath it. Now with the Y, there was a couple more wires here, black and yellow, and these actually go right here to the end stop switch on the Y. So it doesn't really matter which color goes where, because it's just a switch, but we'll simply connect those right there. They kind of slide on into the leads. Hopefully you guys can see that right there. We're definitely going to need to do a little bit of wire management because there's wires everywhere. And then we have our last wire, which is the, well, not our last, but almost our last wire. This is the heated bed. And so that just goes on right here in the back of the bed. You can see there's a plug there. Clips right in there, just like that. So, and that's all the wiring except for the power wire. Now there's something a little bit funky about the power wire because it's short, so it's not really made to go around. I think it's made to go straight underneath the printer because this wire that's coming out of the control box here is also very short. So let's go ahead and flip this on its side. You guys can see a little better. So here we have the wire coming out of the control box, and here we have the other wire. So they barely reach each other. So I'm not sure exactly why they made them so perfect. They literally kind of stretch across to even connect, but they do reach and they do connect just fine, and it should be fine just like that. So just keep in mind that's how you'd have to do this if you think it's too short, and obviously it is too short to go all the way around. And believe it or not, guys, that is all our wiring. So everything is connected and everything is ready to go. So as you can see, it wasn't very complicated to get this thing together and connected. So let's go ahead and bring our Z axis up. So there is one more thing we need to do before we can power it on and see if everything works, is we need to install the build platform. So it is a sticker that'll go on top of here, but before you put it on here, you have to take off the protective layer that's protecting the aluminum. So now I'm going to install the sticker somewhere in here. So this part is usually a little tricky for me, and I tend to mess these up, but let's see how I do on this one. I did learn if I start from a corner like this, it usually turns out a lot better. Well, I guess that's not the corner I wanted to start with. All right, here we go. So we're just gonna line up the whole thing pretty close. So once it's lined up, we can go ahead and touch that corner there. Well, it looks like I didn't get it perfect, but it's pretty close now. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pull on this as I keep massaging this thing. It should be square. So you want to keep doing that slowly because you don't want any air bubbles. Our bed is on. So we're all turned out good. Maybe not perfect, but good enough. You want to check everything, make sure everything's tight. We have 3 end stop switch, one in the back, one right here. So the back is Y, this is Z, and then we have an X right here. So everything looks connected. and good to go. All right, so if everything looks good, let's go ahead and plug the power in and power it on for the first time. All right, so if you're sure that you got your power supply on the right voltage, we can go ahead and plug in our power. Then we're going to hit this power switch and it'll turn it on. And there we go. We can see the screen comes on. And we even get a little melody. So let's take a closer look at our UI here. So we can see it's a really nice clean white background. So here we have print, tools, and system. Print is where you're going to be printing your files, which is going to be reading the SD card. Tools is where we're going to control the printer. So we have manual movements, the increments, and we even have extruder here, the Z, the Y, and the X. And then we have a big home button, which we will press here in a minute. Make sure everything homes. Here we have a preheat button. So let's go ahead and preheat it. So as you click it, you can see it changes. So the top is the bed. So we'll go about 58. The bottom is the hot end. We'll do that about 220, it's fine. So it should be preheating right now, the bed and the hot end. So here we have control of the extruder for the filament. Here we have a leveler. So it does have an assisted leveler where it'll go to where you need it. And we will level the bed also. Here we have a fan. So here we can control the fan. A stop to cancel everything. And then this is our offset. And that's it. That's all the tools. And here we have system, just kind of info about the all the parameters of printer, about, and then our languages, either Chinese or English. And then here we have default, I guess, to reset the whole system. And then here we have touchscreen adjusting. We don't need to touch that either, so pretty basic. So when I click home, we're going to have all the axes go to our end stop switches, and that's its home. So I'm going to go ahead and push it. So we can see the X going, and it reads it. All right, now we got the Y. Okay, so that's good. And now we have the Z going down. All right, looks like all of our motors and all of our end stop switches work. So that's a good start. So as that's preheating, and I can see, yeah, I can feel it's getting warmer. So that's good. Looks like everything is working just fine. We can go ahead and start leveling the bed. So leveling the bed is very important because if you don't have your bed leveled correctly, you will have a very hard time starting a print. So let's hit the level button here and let's go to our first point. And so once we click on the corner of where we want it to go, it's going to head straight there. So what you're going to need is a sheet of paper. And what you're going to do is you're going to put the sheet of paper in between the nozzle, the tip of the nozzle, and the bed. And then you're going to adjust the bed according to how far and close it is. And you want to do it while it's warmed up because when the bed warms up, it actually expands. All right, well, hopefully you guys can see it, but what you want to do is you want to have a piece of paper going in there, and you want to have just a slight drag. So once you have a little bit of a drag, you can go ahead and go to the next corner, which is going to be over there. And you will need to go around at least 2 or 3 times. All right, so that's pretty good right there. We got a little slight drag. So once you go around at least 2 or 3 times, and then we can check the middle. So when you get to the middle, you might have to either raise the whole platform up or raise it down. And if you're gonna do it, you basically turn all the knobs the same, either all going up a little bit or all going down a little bit to adjust for the middle. So, and that's the way I leveled the bed and usually works very well. So you definitely want to take your time and you want to do it right. You want to have a really small perfect gap, and especially in the middle because that's where most of the prints will be. All right, so now that everything is leveled and working, we can go ahead and put some filament in. So I have this little roll, actually Tronxy filament, PLA, that's white. So let's go ahead and do our first print with this. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your filament up here, and then it's going to go straight down here to the extruder. And then we're going to feed it through the extruder, and we're going to push it all the way down into the hot end. It should be coming out the other end. And as you guys can see, it is coming out. And so now we're ready to print. But before we can print anything, we need to grab our little micro SD card and then insert it into the slot. So let's check out what's on it. We're going to click on print. And we can see there's some kind of folder here, and see we have other folders, but we actually have a G-code file which is called 40mm box pillar. If we click on that, there is no preview, so apparently there could be a preview here. So if we click the play button here, it should start printing. Let's go ahead and click it. All right, so the printer initiated. So let's go ahead and watch it start. And there it goes. Alright, so I can tell that it's definitely a little too close to the bed. Yeah, I probably should stop that. So let's go ahead and stop it. definitely a little close to the bed, and we kind of scratched it up a bit. Okay, well that's kind of strange. So I'm gonna double check my level. Maybe something went out of whack. I'm gonna go straight to the middle. Okay, yeah, it's definitely too tight. I wonder what happened. In any case, so it looks like we need to re-level the bed, so that was actually my fault somehow. I messed it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through the leveling process again, and hopefully I can get that figured out and we can start our first print. Alright guys, so I'm trying again. So I re-leveled the bed, and for some reason it was way off. And we'll see how it goes. If I can bring it a little closer here, we can see a little better. Alright, and off it goes. A little bit of boogers, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, now it definitely looks like it's the right amount. So it was my error there. Somehow I messed up the bed leveling, even after stressing that that's important. In any case, once you get your bed leveling right, it should print just perfect. And it looks like that's exactly what we have. Looks like a really nice bead. So as that's printing, let's take a closer look here at the display. So here we have information. We have the bed, which is 50. And then we have the nozzle, which is at 200. And then we have the time, how much passed. I guess how much it takes doesn't show that. Then we have 30, which is the speed that it's printing at. And we have our file name. Here's the preview, which is there is no preview for this file. And we have a pause, a stop, and we have more options here. We can adjust certain things. We can adjust the speed, the bed, the nozzle, the flow rate. Well, that's really cool. And then our fans. So we do have, looks like F2 and F3. F1 is not used. So there's a few adjustments. All right, so it looks like it's printing away and everything looks good. So I'm gonna keep an eye on it, but I think everything will be fine. So the printer overall is not very loud, but you can definitely hear the stepper motor. There is a little bit of a whine. And I don't know if you guys can hear it in the microphone. So it's not super loud, but it's definitely not quiet. So as it's printing, let's take a closer look at it here. So we have the bottom frame, and it's quite a low profile. You guys can see. So a heated aluminum bed, no insulation under the bed. It doesn't really need it, it's quite small. Then we have the brains here. That's where the micro SD card goes. Nice lettering here up front. So we do have a 3D printed fan duct, and it is an axial fan, so that's a plus. And it looks like it's powered on, so it's going. We do have an all metal extruder, and we can see the filament being fed. And all the stepper motors are made by Tronxy. So overall, everything seems to be working, and there's no issues. So our print is doing good. Looks like everything is sticking on really good, and quality looks great also. So once it's done, we'll take a closer look at it. All right, so it looks like our pillar is done, and it says here on the screen it's 1 hour and 8 minutes, how long it took. All right, so let's see how it turned out. I'm gonna see if I can just pull this off. Okay, yeah, it's not coming off. So let's go ahead and use the spatula and see if we can scrape it off. So it's definitely sticking better than I would imagine, considering I didn't use glue or anything. All right. Okay, so it came off pretty easy. Didn't have to fight with it too much. So let's take a little closer look at it, and it looks really good. I don't know if you guys can see the reflections or not. White is not a good color to judge. But as far as I can see, this is very, very good. There's nothing too weird going on, and it's a very solid print. So for this class of a printer, I would say this is an excellent print. Very respectable quality. But I think if we use darker colors, we'll be able to see a lot better what our layers look like. So I'm going to go ahead and print a few more things, including a Benchy, and we'll really see how the print quality looks. All right, so I printed quite a few things here, and we're going to take a closer look at them. So the machine's been working just fine. There's no issues. This build plate surface here actually sticks very well. Surprisingly, because it's not even rough, it's a smooth finish, but the prints seem to stick really well to it, and they do pop off. There was no issues of popping them off, so that was a little surprising to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and power it off. All right, so after this white pillar that we just looked at, I printed a calibration cube here, and hopefully I'll be able to get some reflections so you guys can see. It turned out very, very good. So this is black, you know, you can see quite easy on black. and it's actually very nice. It's better than I thought it would be. So the finish is very uniform. There is a little bit of discoloring, but you know, as far as the surface, finished surface, it's really nice. So even though this is kind of a budget printer, it's performing very well. So let's go ahead and take a look at this benchy here. So same thing for the benchy. Very solid and what you would expect out of this kind of printer. The white you see here is from the bed. The coloring, I guess, is coming off. So you can see that there is a little bit of vibration noise in the print, but that's due to the stepper motors or the controllers for the stepper motors. If you add TL smoothers to this printer, that should get rid of a lot of those. So that's a pretty easy upgrade you can do. But even the overhangs, if you guys can see, they're very nice. So the cooling is great on this printer too, or pretty good. So after the benchy, I wanted to print another belt, and I printed this one in red. And here we might be able to see the finish on it. So pretty much the same kind of finish. It's kind of textured with some vibrations in it, but overall a very clean and uniform layer bonding. So as we went up into more details here, it did pretty good overall, and I would say very respectable for sure. So also a good print. So after the boat, I wanted to print something else here that's a little larger. Here we have the Matter Hacker Space Guy, and he turned out really well also. And hopefully you guys can see the reflections there. The layer bonding seems to be very good on this printer and uniform. Turned out very well. And even the bottom turned out great also. And by the way, guys, I forgot to mention, all of the prints that are printed here are sliced in 0.16 layer height. So after the space guy, I figured, you know, we needed a spaceship. So I printed this pretty cool gold colored spaceship. Now this is actually spiralized mode, so this is ultra light. It's completely one layer and it's hollow inside. And this thing turned out very nice. You can see how great this turned out, especially of this gold filament. Now we did have a little bit of an issue up here, as you guys can see. This is way too thin and way too hot. And this could have probably been improved on my end on the slicing, but giving more time between layers. But I totally forgot about that setting when I sliced this thing. But in any case, it still kind of turned out. It looked like just like more like a pile up. But other than that, everything else looks very good. And I don't know if you guys can see, but right here where those bumps are, there's actually little tiny holes there. And that's quite detailed. They turned out great. And even this pretty sharp taper here turned out good too. So overall, I'm really happy with how this printer is printing. With it being a budget printer, I wasn't expecting too much out of it, to be honest. But I was pleasantly surprised of the print quality. So even though this printer doesn't produce the best print quality I've ever seen, as a budget printer, I feel like it has a lot to offer, especially if you're getting started with 3D printing and you want to try it out. This would probably be a pretty good machine to start with. And the reasons for that is assembly is quite easy, as you saw. Most everything is pre-assembled. Now you do have to have a little bit of knowledge of adjusting things. So it does help if you're a bit mechanically inclined. And I really do like that they have this all-in-one control box here with the touchscreen. So overall, thumbs up for this thing. If you can find this printer for under 200, and I would say the sweet spot would be about 180 or less, would be a pretty good deal for this thing. You get a good value for your money, and the print quality is good. But if you're looking for something a little bit more serious, Tronxy has the XY-2 Pro, which is quite an upgrade from this thing. It's actually completely a redesigned printer, and it even has a larger bed, and that one's also very well priced. I did do an unbox and review on that one, so I'll have some links here at the end. Check that out. And if you enjoyed this video, guys, then hit that like button. If you want to see more 3D printing videos, I got a lot more stuff to come, so hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.